All right, what we're going to do now is move on into lesson 3, and this is going to talk also about God existing. It's the second argument for the existence of God. We call this divine design. So we're still in point 2, does God exist? And in future nights, we're going to get into miracles. We'll talk about miracles. I won't do miracles. I'm going to have Derwin come in and do some miracles. I'm just going to talk about them. And then we'll get into the New Testament in May. So next week we're going to be back talking about miracles and evolution and that kind of thing. But right now we're still talking about does God exist? And this is called the teleological argument, the argument from design. And it goes back to William Paley's argument that if you found this watch in the woods, would you think it was made by natural law? You know, you're just kind of walking along in the woods and you see a diamond-studded Rolex and you pick it up and you go, I don't need to turn this in. This was made by the wind and the rain. No. Well, it turns out that every watch implies a watchmaker. Well, both the universe and life appear to be designed, and to a much greater degree than a watch is designed. And we're going to look at the universe first because we just got talking about how the universe exploded into being out of nothing. And let me make a couple of quick adjustments to what I said before. When I said the second law of thermodynamics shows that the total amount of energy is being used up in the universe. What it means is energy, the total amount of energy stays the same, but the amount of usable energy is decreasing. So the proportional amount of usable to unusable continues to change to ultimately you run out of energy completely. I'm not saying energy goes out of existence. I'm saying it's being used up into unusable energy. Also, someone had a question before or during the break about quantum causality and all this. The short answer to the quantum causality thing, and we talk about this in the book, is when some atheists saying, well, the universe could have popped out of into existence out of the quantum vacuum. The quantum vacuum is not nothing. The quantum vacuum is something. It's a sea of fluctuating energy. Who created the quantum vacuum? Okay? There's a beginning to space, matter, and time. It wasn't a quantum vacuum. It wasn't swirling mathematical points. It wasn't positive and negative energy. It was nothing. No space, no matter, no time, what rocks dream about. And this universe came into existence. And it did come into existence with extreme design. In fact, as we look here at the universe, we're going to see a principle that some scientists call the anthropic principle. What's the anthropic principle? That the universe is highly fine-tuned for human life to exist. In fact, it's highly fine-tuned even for us to have chemistry. Because there would be no universe, not just universe with life, but if certain constants or factors about the universe were altered slightly, there wouldn't even be galaxies. There wouldn't even be the ability to have heavier elements. So the universe is highly fine-tuned to be here, and also highly fine-tuned for life. The anthropic principle, anthropos meaning man or mankind. Universe highly fine-tuned for mankind. And we'll start again with our favorite atheist here, Stephen Hawking, who put it this way with regard to the expansion rate of the universe. He said if the expansion rate of the universe was different by 1 part in 1,000 million, a second after the Big Bang, the universe would have collapsed back on itself or never developed galaxies. If you would have changed the expansion rate that infinitesimal amount, we wouldn't be here. In fact, the expansion rate right now is highly fine-tuned. Einstein talked about a cosmological constant. He had the wrong cosmological constant. There is a real cosmological constant which is somehow causing the universe to accelerate. The universe is accelerating right now. We don't know why. Some scientists are calling it dark energy. We just don't know why, but the universe is speeding up. So there's going to come a point in time, unless God intervenes, we're not even going to be able to see the next galaxy because things are receding out. By the way, this answers the claim that many say, well, couldn't the universe collapse back on itself and then reemerge again? No. The best data we have now shows that the universe will expand forever to heat death. So it's not a cyclical thing. But think about that infinitesimal change. We wouldn't even be here if somebody didn't fine-tune the expansion rate. The precision right now of the gravitational force, if it were altered by 1 part in 10 to the 40, we wouldn't be here. What's 1 part in 10 to the 40? It's hard to get our minds around that, so let me give you a couple of illustrations. If the universe is 13.7 billion years old, you know how many seconds that is? That's 10 to the 17 seconds. What's the difference between 10 to the 17 and 10 to the 18? 10. What's the difference between 10 to the 18 and 10 to the 19? 10. You're adding another 0. We're at 10 to the 40 here. 10 to the 40. That's 1 with 40 zeros following it. Now, how precise is that? Take a tape measure and stretch it across the entire known universe. That's a long way. Set the gravitational force at a particular inch mark on that tape measure. I know gravity's not measured in inches. This is just to give you a scale idea in your mind, what we're talking about here. If you were to move the strength of gravity 1 inch in either direction, we wouldn't be here. That's 1 in 10 to the 40 precision. I don't have enough faith to believe that that just happened by chance. It takes more faith to believe it happened by chance than to say there's got to be a designer, a fine-tuner out there. In fact, there's only 3 possibilities for this. Chance, physical necessity, in other words, it had to be this way. It doesn't. That gravitational force does not have to be at that level, does not have to be that factor, but it is. Or design. Seems to me design is the inference to the best explanation. It's not chance. It's not physical necessity. We're left with design. By the way, it's not just the gravitational force constant and the expansion rate of the universe that's highly fine-tuned. We even have a habitability argument with regard to our solar system, that it's just right for us to exist. Where are we in the solar system, by the way? There we are, third rock from the sun, right? If we were just a little bit closer to or a little bit further away, we wouldn't be here. A little bit closer to, we'd burn up. A little bit further away, we'd freeze. We are what scientists call the Goldilocks zone. It is not too hot. It is not too cold. It is just right. The axial tilt, 23.5 degrees. Change that slightly, we don't exist. Earth rotation, 24 hours. Change that slightly, we don't exist. The size and distance of the moon from us, if you were to change that slightly, we wouldn't exist. If Jupiter was not in its current orbit, we wouldn't be here. Why not? What does Jupiter do? Jupiter's gravitational force is so strong, it acts as a cosmic vacuum cleaner to attract many of the meteors and space junk to it rather than us. You may have seen recently in the news that scientists believe there might be a big asteroid that's going to hit the world, Earth, in 2040. I'm rooting for Jupiter. In fact, take a close-up look at Jupiter. Do you know what those purple marks are right there? You know what those are? Those are comet fragment strikes that are bigger than the Earth. Thank God for Jupiter. Because if Jupiter wasn't there, we wouldn't be here. The same thing is true with Saturn. You want to get an idea of the size of Jupiter? Check this out. There's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Earth. Look at poor Pluto down here. Do you know Pluto recently has been demoted as a planet? I don't know about you, but I think it's size discrimination. Take a look at this. You can hardly see Pluto. All right, take a look at this now. That's Arcturus. That's another star in our galaxy. The sun is right here. Jupiter is 1 pixel in size on this scale. Earth is invisible. Pluto, forget about it. Okay, keep an eye on Arcturus. You got Arcturus right there? Now take a look at this. Where's Arcturus? There's Arcturus to the left of the white star Rigel. See that? That's Antares, another star in our galaxy. The sun is 1 pixel in size on this. Jupiter is invisible. Earth, Pluto, forget about them. The heavens are awesome. This is just in our galaxy. In fact, if the Earth were the size of a golf ball, Beetlejuice, this one over here, yes, I know it's a movie, but if the Earth were the size of a golf ball, Beetlejuice would be 5 or 6 Empire State Buildings high. The average distance between stars in our galaxy is 30 trillion miles. All that distance is necessary for us to exist here on Earth. Now, 30 trillion miles. How far is 30 trillion miles? Far. Take you at least 2 tanks of gas in a Toyota Prius to go 30 trillion miles. That is, if the gas pedal doesn't stick. We were out in the Desert Museum a number of years ago. My wife's parents are from Tucson. They live in Tucson now. We went out in the Desert Museum. Anyone here from Tucson? All right. You live there, Tucson. Nice place. But they have a desert museum that you can go to at night, and it's kind of a ways away from the city, so there's no city lights. And you can see forever up into the heavens. It's amazing. We could see satellites in orbit. In fact, the guide who was out there said, hey, if we look up at 9:03, it's such a clear night, we'll see the space shuttle in orbit. I said, space shuttle? We're not going to see the space shuttle. I mean, it's 120 feet long. It's 350 miles up. We're not going to see it. Oh, me of little faith. At 9:03, the guide goes, look! And we look up in the sky about 70 degrees above the horizon. There's an object coming out of the west, streaking across the sky relative to us about like this. I mean, it is really cooking. When it got right about here, it disappeared. I don't know whether Scotty beamed it up or what, but it was just cruising across the sky, and then suddenly it was gone. Now, when the space shuttle is in orbit, it's traveling at about 18,000 miles an hour. Goes around the Earth about once every hour and 15 minutes. That's 5 miles per second. You got trouble getting to work in the morning? Take the space shuttle. You'll be there. 5 miles a second. Think about that. Now, I did a little calculation. I was trying to figure out how long would it take us if we could get in the space shuttle and go from our star, the sun, to another star in our galaxy, an average distance away, 30 trillion miles. How long would it take us? Going 5 miles a second to go 30 trillion miles. How long? Years? Long time? Good answer. Yeah. It would take us 201,450 years. That means if you got in the space shuttle at the time of Christ and started traveling to another star in our galaxy an average distance away, you'd be less than 1/100th of the way there right now. And we're going to explore space. No, we're not. We are not going anywhere in space. Who'd like to go to the next nearest star? We'll go. Get in, kids. We almost there yet, Dad. Another 200,000 years, play some more Xbox. Think about that. And how many stars are out there? The number of stars that are out there are about equivalent to the number of grains of sand on all the beaches on all the earth. And to go from one grain of sand to another grain of sand going 5 miles a second, just in our galaxy, will take you over 200,000 years. You see this picture here on the left? That's from the ground. You see that little square right there? That's this square from the Hubble Space Telescope. Those are stars. February 1st, 2003, President of the United States goes into the East Room in the White House. It's Saturday morning, 9 a.m. They turn the TV camera on. Every major network carries his address. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Why? The president looks into the camera and says, my fellow Americans, this morning our nation experienced a great tragedy. Upon re-entry into the atmosphere, the space shuttle Columbia burned up in the skies over Texas. There are no survivors. The Columbia is lost. The president then went on to quote from Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 25. Why Isaiah chapter 40, verse 25? Because in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 25, God is speaking. And here's what God says. To whom will you compare me, or who is my equal, says the Holy One. In other words, you want to know what I'm like? Here's a comparison. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these stars and named them one by one? Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. The president looked back in the camera and said, the same God that created and named all those stars is the same God that created and knows the names of the 7 astronauts who perished today. While they did not return safely home to us, we can all now pray that they've all returned safely home. You want to know who God is? Most Christians have the wrong idea of who God is. We think God is a big angel. God is not a big angel. You want to know who God is? Remove all limits from your mind. That's God. If he's an ounce of any attribute, he's infinite in that attribute. If he's an ounce of love, he's infinite love. An ounce of justice, infinite justice. An ounce of power, infinite power. He is the standard by which everything else is measured. Why is there a second commandment? Thou shalt make no graven image. Or one reason why is there a second commandment. Because any image you draw of an infinite being necessarily limits his majesty. You can't draw a picture of an infinite being. An infinite being has no limits. Every picture you draw limits him. That's why the Bible says, if you want to know what I'm like, look to the heavens. When you look to the heavens, what do you see? You see a virtual, infinite expanse. That's the point. Psalm 103, verse 11 says, God's love to those that fear him exceeds the height of the heavens above the earth. How high are the heavens above the earth? Number of stars equivalent to grains of sand on all the beaches on all the earth. 200,000 years between those stars at 5 miles a second. Infinite. That's the point. The heavens declare the glory of God. Look to the heavens. His invisible qualities are clearly seen so that men are without excuse. You know there's a creator when you look at a creation. Although some don't look at it that way. In fact, I just mentioned there are 3 possibilities for this fine-tuning. There's chance, there's physical necessity, and there's also design. I think the first 2 are too hard to believe. You say, well, what do atheists say about this? Let's take a look at Richard Dawkins from his book, The Blind Watchmaker. And right in the middle of this book, he sums it all up for us. He says, here's the central argument of my book, pages 157 to 158. He says, the appearance of design is overwhelming. Is it overwhelming to you too? When you look at this design? It sure appears to be design. By the way, Dawkins even says this is about biology. He says biology is the study of complicated things which give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Aren't we supposed to be scientists, like observing things and then drawing conclusions? If it appears to be designed for a purpose, maybe it is. I mean, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, squawks like a duck, it might be a duck. So Dawkins admits with regard to the universe, the appearance of design is overwhelming. But then he says there's no explanation for this design in physics. In fact, during one of the debates he had with John Lennox, he got a question from the audience. And the audience went like this, Dr. Dawkins, where did the laws of physics come from? And Dawkins said, well, I have no idea. But bringing God into it doesn't help. Well, I actually think bringing God into it does help. Why? Why is the universe so orderly? Why are these natural forces so predictable and precise? Why can we send a rocket from the earth and put a man on the moon? Why can we put a little rover on Mars? Because we can predict with precision how these laws are going to affect our spaceship. Why is that? This appears to be the product of a mind, not the product of randomness. In fact, you wouldn't even know what randomness was unless you knew what order was. This universe appears to be ordered, highly fine-tuned. It's balanced on a razor's edge. Any one of a number of factors were different, we wouldn't be here. I mean, the anthropic principle, it's as if there is a control room somewhere in the universe, and there's all these dials. Some say scores of dials. Some say more than that, even if it's just 10. All these dials set to precisely the right level. And these dials, by the way, are interconnected. If you go in and turn one of them, the whole universe would go out of existence. Or we wouldn't have a universe where we could have galaxies. It appears there's some mind behind this. But you know what Dawkins says? You know what his explanation for this is? And I'm not making this up. This is out of the book. You can come up here and get the book and read it for yourself if you think I'm making this up. Here's what he says. Maybe the multi-universe theory, which relies on, what word is that right there? Luck. Now, is luck a cause? Even if you're Irish, is luck a cause? No, luck is not a cause. Luck is a word we use to cover our ignorance. Things don't happen by luck. There's always a cause. And Dawkins is saying, well, maybe we just happen to be in the universe which appears to be designed, even though it really isn't. And this is called the multi-universe theory, okay? This is what atheists are coming up with now, that there are many universes out there, and we just happen to be in the universe that looks designed even though it really isn't. Is there any evidence for this? No. It's just a backhanded way of saying, wow, the universe looks really designed, but we're not going to imply a designer. We're going to come up with this speculation to explain it. Here's one of the main problems with it. Even one of the advocates of what's called the multi-universe theory admits, his name is Alexander Vilenkin, I quoted him earlier, admits even if there are other universes out there, the whole show, all the universes together require an absolute beginning. So you don't get rid of the need for an absolute beginner. There was a beginning, even if there are other universes out there. So this doesn't help Dawkins. He has faith that this is the answer. One day we're going to find a natural cause. No, you're not going to find a natural cause for all of nature. And then his big retort is, who made God? We already pointed out that that's a bad question, because if God is timeless and outside the universe, he didn't have a beginning, so no one made him. It's like asking a bachelor, what's your wife's name? Okay? Doesn't make any sense. God is the uncaused first cause. But this is the kind of thing that atheists are saying. Now, we just looked at what caused the universe. Now we're going to look at what caused life. And now we're transitioning seamlessly, I might add, right into lesson 4. You guys ready to go?